To get access to this tool and any of our other tools that you might use in your real estate practice, visit lesix.agency/ultimate guide to register today. Don't forget that you can also subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on our latest tutorials and overviews of how AI can help you grow your real estate business and maximize the value of your time. I get a ton of questions all the time about how AI can be used to create social media content. And this is probably one of the most discussed things everywhere I go. When real estate professionals, whether that be an agent, broker, a school owner, association director, whoever, is asking me how can I use AI to write social media content and automate that process, inevitably the question comes up, what prompts should I be using? And I am a firm believer that prompts are largely meaningless. Now, I don't mean to say that prompts, you shouldn't know how to engineer a good prompt, but in reality, I think the data that you provide your chats, the information you provide your chat agent to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish is far more important than any sort of prompt that you can use. And think about it this way. The beauty of ChatGPT and Claude is that you don't have to prompt anything, that it is designed to have a conversation. So think about what information you would need to provide a real human social media assistant to be able to write good content for you, and then that's what you need to be able to generate good content. And I'm going to show you two ways that you can do that. One is a very simple way, very basic, and the other one is going to be showing you how it is on our end, how we create content specifically for specific platforms. So starting in ChatGPT, the first thing that you can start with is analyze this. That is your quote-unquote prompt. And what you're going to drop in there is a copy of your ideal client profile. Your ideal client profile is a detailed understanding of who it is that you're speaking to. Now, you may have multiple profiles, and that's perfectly fine. But let's suppose for a second that we're talking about first-time home buyers, that's the profile that we want to write content for on our social media. Well, we're just going to drop it in. So let me go ahead and grab that profile, drop it in here, and then we can move on to the next step. So this is inside Claude. This is actually our ideal client profile or AI employee that can produce this AI description of your ideal client, and you see that it's a very detailed description. I've copied that. I'm going to go back to this chat and just paste it in. And that gives us a ton of information to give the chat thread to be able to understand who it is that we're talking about. Your social media content is not supposed to be something that just states your features or your sales processes or whatever it might be. You want to speak to people. The beauty of social media is that you can connect with people. So here you see you have a detailed understanding of the ideal client, and it should take just a few moments to be able to go through that. You can see essentially it's just repeating back here what it is that we are producing, who it is we're producing content for. So all of this said, when this is done, we can say, okay, fantastic. Now, let's try to come up with a series of social media posts that we can use on Facebook for Hal. This is for the month of March, and we want that theme to run through our posts. Pick a theme for March and give me that content plan. All right. Again, is that a prompt? Sure. But in reality, I wouldn't necessarily call it a prompt as I would a directive, right? So here we go. We have um, a 4-week post, and it's writing this out. A couple of posts in week 1, a couple of posts in week 2, a couple of posts in week 3, a couple of posts in week 4. Right? And the greatest thing about it is that it gives us an overview of the content calendar, gives us a caption, a hook, a call to action, and a great visual idea. So just by helping to understand who our ideal client is, we have created a social media plan for the month of March in 5 minutes, most of which has been me talking to you about how this process works. In reality, this is how simple it can be. This is how fast it can be. And the idea here is that by understanding the data that you provide your chat, you don't need to sit there and worry about prompts, and you come up with content that is specific to you. Now, there are other ways that you can do this as well. We have a custom GPT called the Social Media Generator, and you just go through a process here of answering some questions. So, what is the audience of this post? It's going to ask you who that ideal client is. And again, you can paste that information in there. And then it even says, right, detailed audience profile. So you can ask, what are we writing about today? Let's say, let's write a post for St. Patrick's Day. So this one is more oriented towards an individual post as opposed to what we did in the previous example. But it's going to ask you for any details, personal stories, any other context you'd like to provide. I love the idea of striking gold, and that's why I love St. Patrick's Day. All right. The fun nature of the holiday and the shenanigans we get into with our friends is really on point for a sneaky little leprechaun. All right, nothing too over the top there. But here you can see that it's writing this post, taking into account the ideal client profile, the theme that you wanted to talk about, that personal story. And here it's writing a post that's very specific to all of the information that we get. And again, it's more of a personally written post. So while this one here just starts with a blank chat, gives your ideal client profile, and comes up with some really good content ideas, this one is more oriented towards an individual social media post that is very specific to the data that you gave it, from the ideal client profile to what you're writing about and those contextual story points. And again, you see here that it's formatted in a very specific way. Now, what we do is we actually have our own custom GPTs built inside of Claude. They're called Claude projects that trains these particular AI employees on very specific details. Everything from writing Instagram content to the clear copywriting framework that was developed by one of the best copywriters I know, Jeff Hunter, to our ideal clients that we write for, the 4 different ideal clients that we have inside of the company, what their CVJs are, writing samples of mine, what our branding documentation looks like, all of which is trained to be able to come up with content for Instagram. So if I look at this particular chat here, it's written an Instagram optimized post based off those steps that we went through. And this is something that my staff uses more than I use, but in reality, it's all written with the same voice and the same context and the same information, all by just answering a few particular questions. What is the content about? And we can paste in a transcript of a video or a long form piece of content. And we do that for LinkedIn, for TikTok, as well as for Facebook. So that all four of these platforms that we're writing content for and splintering off of another piece of content, it's all very specific to that platform, to our voice, to our branding, and to our ideal clients. All of which means that this content can be produced in mere minutes. The key thing to keep in mind about all of this is that it doesn't matter what your prompts are. Your prompts are really meaningless when it is compared to the data and the information, these ideal client profiles, our writing samples, our branding documentation. All of that is far more important because you can use it to train your AI very quickly, very efficiently, and very simply to help you produce content in mere minutes or even seconds if you have this thing really dialed in.